Hey, thank you so much for joining. My name is Dillon, and I'm going to take a few minutes to explain to you the 3 responses we can get after submitting our offer to a seller. And the 3 options are an acceptance, a rejection, and a counter. And the third option, a counter, has 2 parts, and I'll get to that in a minute. The first option, an acceptance, is definitely the most rare in any market, not just this competitive low inventory market. And the reason it's the most rare and the most unlikely is because an acceptance is a true acceptance of all terms, and almost always, even if the seller agrees to our price, they're going to respond with a counteroffer that includes things like service providers, like the escrow company or the title company that's going to be used. So anyways, an acceptance means we are heading straight to escrow, no more negotiating. The second option is a rejection, and that is obviously self-explanatory. It means the seller rejects our offer and doesn't even care enough to respond to it with a counteroffer. It usually means the offer is simply not good enough for the seller to even bother entertaining. And it's somewhat common in this market. What we're seeing is if a home has maybe 10 or 15 offers, the seller will reject the lowest 10 and counter the top 5. Or maybe they'll reject the top 12 and respond or counter the top 3. So it's nothing to take personally in this market, but it's definitely something that we don't want to get as a buyer. And the third option is a 2-part, that's the counter offer. And there are 2 types of counters. There's a single counter offer and a multiple counter offer. The single counter offer means that a seller is only countering us, the buyers. And if we accept the terms of the seller's single counter offer and send our acceptance back to the seller, then great news, we get to go to escrow. So speed is important when we're responding to a single counter offer, because as soon as we accept the single counter offer and give that acceptance back to the seller is legally obligated to stick with us. Once they accept our offer, there's no going back. And they accept our offer when we accept their single counter offer. The other part, option of a counter offer is a seller multiple counter offer. These are definitely trickier, but they're also more common. So a seller multiple counter is when a seller receives, using the same example, they receive 15 offers, they respond to the top 3 with a multiple counter, which means they ask for each of the 3 buyers to submit, for example, their highest and best price, to close in this certain number of days, and perhaps to waive an appraisal contingency. Now, if we as buyers accept all the terms of a seller's multiple counter and give that acceptance of the seller's multiple counter back to the seller quickly, the seller still has the right to solicit and entertain other offers, whether it be another acceptance or response to their multiple counter from another buyer, or maybe even a new buyer coming in and submitting an offer. So seller multiple counters kind of leave options open for a seller, where a single counter offer is really great for us to get as buyers, because if we accept it quickly and get it back to the seller is obligated to us. Now, the result of an acceptance of the multiple counter usually means that the seller has a couple more days to review the responses they got from their multiple counter and then choose the best response. So in the event of a highest and best multiple counter from those sellers, we submit our best and final price, another buyer submits their best and final price, and say a third buyer does the same thing. The seller has a few days to decide which offer to take. Now, in any situation, whether it be a multiple counter, a single counter, or an outright acceptance, once a seller agrees to our offer in writing, there is no going back for the seller. They are obligated to us. So I use the example with my buyers is if a seller accepts our offer and another buyer comes along and submits an all-cash offer that's higher than ours, the seller can't entertain that offer until we back out, if we choose to back out. And if we don't back out, then oh well, kind of sucks for the seller. They're stuck with us. So it's a good thing for us as buyers that the leverage of a contract kind of shifts towards the favor of us as buyers once the seller accepts our offer. So again, to recap, three options that we can get, three responses we can get after submitting an offer: an acceptance, a rejection, and a counter, whether that be a single counter or a multiple counter. Regardless of what we get, it's my job to guide you and advise you on what is best. And if you have any questions about this video after viewing, as always, call me. Thanks for watching.